Hello, welcome back to FreeCodeCamp. We're learning Introductory JavaScript by building a pyramid generator. This is part of the JavaScript algorithms and data structures. We're on step 86. And in this step, it says using done to track the numbers of the rows that have been generated is functional. But you can actually clean this logic up a further bit. We have a array have special length properties that allow us to see how many values or elements are in an array. You would access this by using a syntax like myArray, so the array.length method. So we're going to update the condition and check if rows.length is less than or equal to count. So what we will do is update our condition and check if rows.length is less than or equal to count. So where it says done, we could, instead of having done in our while loop condition, we could do rows.length, just like this. Is less than or equal to count. Consider subscribing and liking if you find it helpful. And my sound settings should be good now. Just let me know in the comments if they're a little off. So now for step 87, it says we could also replace the done reference in our pad row call. So now before we replace done in our pad row call, here with rows.length plus 1, we may see a range error because we've created another off by 1 error. We'll need to change the while condition to use less than 1 operator. Less than, use the less than operator instead of the less than or equal to. So we'll need to replace done here. So we could also replace the done reference in our pad row call. So this done in our pad row call in our rows.push, we could change rows.length, rows.length, just like this. And then in our while loop condition, instead of having a less than or equal to, we just have it less than. Oh, it should be rows dot for our pad row call. It should be rows dot length plus 1, just like this. So now step 88 says we no longer need the done variable, so we can remove the increment operator from the loop and the variable declaration for done. So that's on line 14, remove everything for the done, and line 16, just like this. So now, step 89, it says that that's a very clean and functional loop, but there's still more to explore. We're going to use multi-line comment to comment out the while loop. So we could do slash star and then star slash to end the comment, the multi-line comment, just like this. So now step 90, it says, what if we made our pyramid upside down or inverted? Time to try it out. It says start by a new for loop, declare the iterator as I. So let's do that first. So we're going to do for and then our parentheses I, let I equal to 1. And it says assign it the value of count and assign the value of count. So I equals to count instead of 1. And then use a boolean false for your condition and iteration statements. So we could do false and false. So false and false, just like this. And we gotta close the loop, just like this with the curly braces. So now at step 91, it says because you're going to loop in the opposite direction, your loop needs to run while I is greater than or equal to 0. So we could use the greater than or equal greater than operator for this. And so we're gonna set our loop's condition, which is the middle part here of our for loop, to run I is greater than to when I is greater than 0. So we're gonna run, instead of having false here, we're gonna do I is greater than 0. I is greater than 0, just like this. So now step 92, it says our iteration statement is also going to be different. Instead of having adding 1 to I with each loop, we're gonna need to subtract I. So like we did earlier, I is equal to I plus 1, which iterates by 1. We're gonna update our iteration statement to give it I the value of subtracting 1 by itself. So instead, so our last uh, our last false over here is the iteration statement. So we're gonna have I is equal to I minus 1 instead. So now for step 93, it says again we're gonna push the result by calling pad row with our I and count variables to the rows array. So we're gonna do rows dot push. Then it says to call pad row, so we're gonna do pad row, and pad row takes in two arguments, which is row number and row count. So our first is going to be the row number, which is going to be with I, so the current index, and then the count as our row count. So count, just like this. So now for step 94, it says just like additional, there's a subtraction operator that we could use. The subtraction assignment operator minus equals subtracts the given value from the current value, then assigns the result back to the variable. So we're going to replace our iterator statement with the correct statement using the subtraction operator. So we could do I, instead of having I equals to I minus 1, it will be the same thing if we did I minus equals 1. And we should see the pyramid upside down. So now for step 95, it says because we're already subtracting 1 from I, you could also use the decrement de decrement operator minus minus. So instead of having I minus 1, which is the same thing as I equals to I minus 1, we could do also minus minus or I minus minus. And if we would want to increase by 1, we'll just do I plus plus. But in this case, we're going to do minus minus. Just like this. So now step 96, it says we're going to use the multi-line comment to comment out this loop as well. So just like before, in the beginning of where we want the multi-line comment, we could do slash star, and then where we want to end it, which is line 20, we're going to do star slash. And this is where our multi-line ends. So now step 97, it says you could also build this inverted pyramid without needing to loop backwards like we just did. To do this, we'll need to learn a couple new array methods. Start by using const to declare numbers variables. So let's do that first. So we're going to do const numbers is equal, and it says to assign it an array with the elements 1, 2, and 3, and then log these numbers, log the numbers array. So we create an array by using the brackets, and then we're gonna have 1, 2, and 3, just like this. Then on a new line, we're gonna also log the numbers array. So we're gonna do console.log numbers, just like this, and we should see the array of 1, 2, and 3. Now for step 98, the unshift method of the array allows us to add a value to the beginning of the array, like unlike the push, which adds the value at the end of the array. So what we will do here, so in this example, const numbers is equal to 1, 2, and 3 array, which has 1, 2, and 3. Uh, the unshift method over here, we're doing numbers that unshift 5. This 5 will be added to the beginning of the array. So if this was a push method, so let's say it was numbers that push 5, the 5 will be 1, 2, 3, and then 5. So the push method adds a value at the end of the array, and the unshift allows us to add a value at the beginning of the array. So we're going to use const to declare an unshifted variable. So we can do const unshifted is equal and assigning the result of calling the unshift on our numbers array. So we're going to do numbers dot unshift just like this, and then we're going to pass in 5 as the argument, and then we're going to print the unshifted variable. So we do console dot log unshifted just like this, and we should see 4. Oh, we should see the 5, I mean. So now step 99, it says notice that the push and the unshifted returns a new length of the array after elements added. Arrays also have a shift method. This will remove the first element of the array, unlike pop, which removes the last element of the array. So here's the example of the shift method. So we have const numbers is equal to array of 1, 2, and 3. And if we do numbers that shift, this will remove the first element rather, from the array. So the new array will look like, will have 2 and 3. So we're going to declare a shifted variable and assign it to the result of calling shift on our numbers array. So we can do const shifted is equal to numbers dot shift just like this. And it doesn't need any argument. And we should console log shifted. So if we gotta do that, so we do console dot log shifted just like this. Now step 100, it says now that you've tried these methods, you could do another inverted pyramid approach, but first we'll need to clean up our experimentation. So we're going to remove the numbers array and the and the method calls and the log calls. So remove this. So we're going to remove everything just like this. So now step 101, it says sometimes you wish you could bring back the previous code that you commented out. You could do this by removing the slash star and the star slash around the code, and this is called uncommenting. Uncomment only the first for loop and leave a single line comment. Leave the single line comment and the other two multi-line comments in place. So it says uncomment only the first for loop, and our first for loop is over here on line 9. So we're gonna keep the single comment, which is the slash slash, and we're gonna remove the multi-line just like this. Now if we check, that's our regular pyramid. So now step 102, it says your pyramid no longer is inverted. This is because you're adding new rows to the end of the array. So we're going to update our loop body to add new rows to the beginning of our array. So it says update our loop body to add newer rows. So this is our loop body between 10 and inside the curly braces. So instead of having push here, which adds it at the end of the array, which adds at the end of the array. We're going to update it so it adds at the beginning of the array. So we could do unshifted here instead of push, just like this. Oh, unshifted. Oh, it's not unshifted, it's unshift. And everything is lowercase, just like this. So now we see the inverted. So now step 103, it says, what if we had another way of toggling between the inverted and the standard pyramid? So we're going to start by declaring an inverted variable and assigning its value to true. So it says you are not changing this variable in the code, but you will need to use let, so our test can be modified later. So we're going to use let inverted is equal to true, just like this. So now on step 104, it says use a if statement to check if inverted is true. Remember that you do not need to use the equality operator here. Okay, so now in our for loop on line 12, we're gonna create an if statement, and we're gonna check if inverted, just if inverted, and this is saying if it is inverted, then it'll run whatever is inside the curly braces over here. And it says that we don't need to use the equality sign or operator here because this will check if it's true. Just like this. So now we're going to move our unshift call into the if block. So we could take this line on 15 where it says rows.unshift pad row with I and count, and we're going to paste it inside our if inverted loop. Just like this. So now it says sometimes we want to run different code when the if condition is false. So to do this, we're going to use the else block. An else block will run only evaluate if the if block does not evaluate. So it's the same syntax as the if logic, but it will have just else and then the curly braces for the body. And this will run if this condition is not met, then it'll run else this. It'll run the else block. So where the if statement body ends, I'm gonna write else and open it up with curly braces and close it, just like this. So now step 107, it says when inverted is false, we want to build a standard pyramid. So we're going to use the push method like we have in the previous steps to achieve this. So if inverted is true, it's going to run rows.unshift and then it's going to call pad row with the I and count. So if we want to, this will be an inverted pyramid. So if we want a standard pyramid, we will do rows.push, which is the opposite of unshift, pad row with the I and count, just like this. So it says your pyramid is now finished in a finished state with more functionality than you originally planned. The next step is to clean up your code. So we're going to remove all the comments, both single and multi-line, from our code. So we're going to remove the whole comment of the while loop and the for loop. Also the to do, which is a single line comment. Just like this. And now it says experiment with different variable values for our character count and inverted variables. So when we are ready to move on to our next project, we're going to set character to the exclamation point and count to 10 and invert it to false. So we could do, let's start with the exclamation point for the character. Then we're going to have a count to 10 and invert is going to be false. Now we see exclamation points. And if we were to do this to 20 count Let's just test, and then an at sign. We could submit this. Oh, so if I go back, add an at sign. Let's add 20. Test this out, and false. And now we should see an at sign. If I restart this and we add 20, invert it to true, and then we add maybe a dollar sign, we'll see it inverted. So now let's just move on. So we're going to use the exclamation point, the count to 10, and invert it to false to move on, just like this. And so yeah, that was it for the building the pyramid generator. You can find the learn basic JavaScript by building a role-playing game on my channel. It is fully finished, and also the next 6 steps. So the validation, building a calorie calculator, building a music player, building a data formatter, building a football team cards, and building a to-do app. And currently, I'm doing the learned recursions by building a decimal to binary converter. And also, I have another video showing uh, a Roman numeral converter. So yeah, thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and like if you have found it helpful. See you guys in the next.